Ernest Shackleton, the renowned Irish explorer, epitomizes the ultimate model for crisis management, sheer endurance, bravery, and skillful persistence of biblical proportions. His 1914 Antarctic expedition faced what can only be described as a complete and utter disaster, albeit Shackleton's leadership and resilience turned a dire situation into a legendary survival tale, unmatched in world history. This story will make your spine tremble out of sheer awe. By 1914, explorers Roald Amundsen and Robert Scott had already reached the South Pole. Shackleton aimed to distinguish himself by attempting the first continental crossing of Antarctica. His ambitious plan required two teams, one departing from South America and the other from Tasmania, converging in the middle of the continent. However, this meticulous strategy was rendered futile when Shackleton's polar expedition ship, the Endurance, became trapped in exceptionally thick sea ice less than 100 miles from the intended landing zone on the shores of Antarctica's mainland. The relentless cold trapped the Endurance, subjecting it to immense pressure from millions of tons of ice pressing against the hull of the ship by relentless icy-cold winds and currents. Shackleton's crew of 28 hand-selected men spent 6 long, frigid months waiting for a thaw that never came. By October, the ice had inflicted irreparable damage on their ship, the Endurance, and on October 27, 1915, Shackleton ordered the crew to abandon ship. With the Endurance lost, Shackleton's new mission was just to lead his men back to civilization in safety. The team drifted 1,186 nautical miles in 281 days, ending up 350 nautical miles or 600 kilometers from Paulet Island, the nearest outpost. They salvaged as many supplies as possible, resorting to eating seals and penguins as their provisions dwindled. After almost a month of salvaging, the Endurance sank beneath the icy waters. Shackleton then planned a perilous trek across the ice to reach the northern tip of Antarctica. If the ice broke apart, they would use salvaged lifeboats. Meantime, the team's hardships intensified. They had to kill all their sled dogs for food, an act Shackleton's second-in-command, Frank Wild, found profoundly distressing. In April 1916, significant ice breaks allowed the men to navigate their lifeboats in open water. Their initial goal was Deception Island, but exhaustion from exposure to freezing seawater at minus 20 degrees and blowing winds at minus 40 degrees forced them to land on Elephant Island on April 15th. This marked the first time Shackleton and his men had stood on solid ground in 497 days, providing much-needed respite. Realizing that the only hope for rescue lay in reaching South Georgia Island, Shackleton embarked on a daring journey. South Georgia was over 2,900 nautical miles away, which is the equivalent of 5,300 kilometers across the planet's most turbulent and coldest sea. Shackleton, armed only with a 20-foot lifeboat, a chronometer, and a sextant, embarked on this perilous voyage to save his crew. The lifeboat was equipped with a mast and stocked with a month's worth of provisions, reflecting Ernest Shackleton's stark rationale: succeed within that time or perish. On April 24th, Shackleton and 5 other men set sail, leaving Frank Wild in charge of the 22 men who remained on Elephant Island. If Shackleton did not return by the following spring, they were to attempt reaching an uninhabited whaling station on Deception Island. The lifeboat covered as much miles daily, with the crew enduring extremely harsh, wet, and utterly cold South Pole conditions. A powerful gale-force storm on the 5th day almost capsized them, freezing water solid on the boat. Constantly chipping away ice, preventing the tiny lifeboat from sinking in the icy cold, immensely deep and dark Arctic Ocean, and discarding excess weight, including sleeping bags and oars, became vital for survival. By the 17th day, they had traveled approximately a third of the journey, constantly drained in icy cold, salt-irritating seawater, on which they were almost and already physically dead from exhaustion and dumpy cold. Halfway the journey, another exceptionally heavy storm again nearly sank them 3 times more. Finally, after 14 unimaginable, horrifying weeks, they sighted South Georgia Island, being utterly exhausted. Despite this, they struggled to find a suitable landing spot and endured another night of hurricane-force winds. The next day, they landed with the last bit of their physical spirit at King Haakon Bay on the island's remote southern side. With their rudder damaged and the boat leaking, crossing the island on foot became their only option. This journey demanded navigating rocks, ice, and 5,000-foot glaciers in meters-deep snow. 3 men were too weak to continue, so Shackleton with 2 others took 3 days' rations, modified their boots with screws for traction, and left their sleeping bags behind, aiming for the whaling station at Stromness, of which he did not know if the station was still in operation and therefore manned or not. They set out on May 19th under a full moon, getting lost among glaciers initially. They slid down a steep incline, roped together to escape high altitudes, and continued over a 2,000-foot glacier and a 2,500-foot waterfall before reaching Stromness in absolute and utter exhaustion. Upon arrival, Shackleton and his men, disheveled and unrecognizable by the incomprehensible physical hardships, encountered the station, upon which he was initially not recognized by the station manager, despite a previous acquaintance. Albeit, when Shackleton calmly told him his name, the Danish station manager bursted uncontrollably into tears from sheer overwhelming emotions, for he understood immediately by intuition the unprecedented hardships Shackleton and his men had to endure to be able to reach his station. Immediately after this emotional encounter at Stromness, the 3 men left at King Haakon Bay were soon rescued by a whaling ship, but rescuing the 22 men on Elephant Island posed a greater challenge. With World War I depleting British resources, Shackleton's attempts to reach Elephant Island in a whaling ship were thwarted by solid ice. After 3 mentally painful failed tries, his men were still trapped on the small Arctic island, after which, finally, the Chilean government lent a small tugboat, the Yelcho, which set off on August 20th of the following year. 5 days later, the Yelcho tugboat appeared visibly on the horizon from Elephant Island. As soon as they were in reach of the shore, Shackleton himself piloted the smaller boat that approached through the surf with exploding emotions and shouted as hard as he could, "All well?" Upon seeing him, Frank Wilde confirmed by shouting back, "All well, all safe." A reunion of men surrounded by emotions of unimaginable hardships after more than a grueling 700 days being exposed to appalling cold Arctic conditions never seen before in history, and not knowing if they would ever be rescued. A reunion of men with the emotional outcry of biblical proportions. After this epic spiritual uplifting encounter, all 22 men were within several hours en route to Punta Arenas in Chile. Shackleton's heroic return to Britain was overshadowed by the ongoing war. He soon volunteered for the army, serving in Norway and Russia. After the war, he planned another Antarctic expedition to circumnavigate the continent despite his declining health. Shortly after arriving again on South Georgia Island on January 4, 1922, Shackleton suffered a fatal heart attack. Honoring his wife's wishes, he was finally buried in a small cemetery on the island, where he rests until today. Never in history has there been a display of utter disaster and courage combined with appalling physical hardship, unimaginable determination, and tough resilience performed by human beings, as in this expedition. Ernest Shackleton's accomplishments to save his men stand as a testament to his extraordinary leadership and resilience. His relentless and selfless pursuit of the salvation of his crew under harrowing conditions exemplifies the pinnacle of human endurance, bravery, resilience, and sheer determination. Therefore, the bestowed eternal title of toughest man in history is one that he earned without question or any rivalry.